All right, Jen, welcome to the show. Congrats on the book. So excited to have you here.
Oh, thanks for inviting me, Mike. I'm so excited about this chat.
Yeah, we met through Selena, of course, and good
Yes,
people know more good people who know more good people. That's how this whole world works. Um,
100%.
I know you've worked with a lot of people from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, and I actually want to start with this because I've been there too. Like this fear or struggle of playing big. Is
Mm,
this something that you battled a lot in your life? I know both of it, like our cultures, like, hey,
yeah,
just stay in line. Don't just go be a doctor, lawyer, or something like that. Nothing, anything wrong with that. But did you struggle with that early on, or even now?
100%. I feel like I was totally the black sheep of my family, right? And given that we have the Asian persuasion in common, right? That persuasion from the external expectation of us. And in my family, if you weren't a lawyer or a doctor, then really you should go work for the government. Those were like your three choices. Okay. And I'm like, so I thought, okay, maybe out of the three, I could be a lawyer, maybe, right? But working for the government, not my game. Actually, maybe they would have been good because I think I would have shifted a lot of things, but I probably would have died in the process. And I don't like blood. So I was like, there's just no way I can be with body fluids. Like it's not gonna happen. But yeah, no, to your point about like, getting to the next level, I always say like when you're climbing to the next level or wanting to, right? And in my mind, it's like, I know I'm gonna meet a new devil. So I call it like that next level, next level, next devil moment, right? That
Mm,
we
hmm.
honestly all face. Like whenever you're ascending, if you will, or even it doesn't even be about ascension, just moving forward, like one even step forward, there are gonna be challenges that are gonna just come your way. And what I've learned is to accept that actually the challenge and the friction is going to exist. Like, in fact,
Mm,
the challenge and the friction is there to actually check yourself before you wreck yourself. Like, do you actually want this thing? Because without challenge and friction, there is no change, there is no transformation, right? And so, totally, like, I grew up, my family, immigrants from the Philippines, got sent over to the States even before the Hawaii. I grew up in Hawaii, where Hawaii wasn't even a 50th state yet when my parents immigrated over to be plantation workers in the
mm,
sugar and pineapple fields. And so I grew up definitely in this very humble, rural, high work ethic, labor, beast of burden kind of energy, right? But the family part was always great, at least in terms of like the gathering and the taking care of each other piece. But the, like, wanting more or having bigger dreams or seeing beyond that current landscape, in my family, it was like, we're just grateful to be here instead of where we were. And for me, I don't know, I came out of the chute, and my mom will tell you this, like, asking questions. Like, I was always like, "Why does it work this way? And why do we have to be like that?" And my mom would say, "You ask too many questions. Like, this is how the world works." And I would be like, "I don't know. Is this really how the world works?" And so I definitely was that person, that little girl, Mike, who was at the time, I used to feel like, "Oh, am I a troublemaker? Do I talk too much? Am I, you know, and there was part of my family who I know loved me, but they definitely told me, if you open your mouth too much, you're going to be disappointed. You're already
mm.
in a minority position. Don't cause a ruckus. Don't question authority, right? It's like compliance is how you would get love, right? In our culture. And so, yes, the answer is hell yes. I had all those things, and those things still live in me, no matter what. Even with all the work and all the like doing the things, every single time, even me bringing a book to the world recently, which is my big thing right now,
Hmm.
I faced, actually, I would say I didn't even face imposter syndrome. I felt like I was qualified to write this book. It was, who am I to like share all of this with the world now? Like it felt very vulnerable and tender. And when people say to me, "But Jen, like you've done so many things." And I heard on a podcast you did, Mike, once where you were like, "Over my careers, plural." Like I'm with you.
Yeah.
Like I always tell people like, I'm not a spring chicken. I'm a seasoned chicken. I've had very different types of careers, both in corporate and then entrepreneurship. And I even worked for the government for a year. So I took my mom's advice and made her happy and got a trophy from her for that. And so I just know that like, no matter what, something new will always trigger that part of you that's like, "Ugh, am I supposed to do this? And am I ready? All the things." So yeah.
You said something interesting there that I just caught, like, just work hard. And I think
Mm,
especially, like, our backgrounds are I almost feel like anything and everything I do has to be hard for it to be worth it, which
mhm,
is totally the converse of what you talk about in the book, building a
mm,
team, getting other people who
mhm.
work hard because at the end of the day, the pie of work has to get done.
Yes.
But I think for you, it sounds like, and similar for me, I always felt like I had to do like 90% of it. I had the worst time even delegating to people I hired. It was
Yes.
ridiculous.
Yes.
Was
Yes.
that
Yes.
was that where one of those things showed up for you? Were those like just kind of the friction and delegating? Like what did that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So if I out myself, absolutely, I'm still a control freak when it comes to all the things, right? And because at the end of the day, what I want everybody to understand is actually when you do it, it is going to be done the most right in general. And so the flex or the up level for you personally, me personally, I'll speak about me was how badly, if I'm going to work hard, because I'm going to work hard no matter what, because it's already
Right.
part of my DNA. If I'm going to work hard, am I working on the right hard things that I'm best suited for? Because and that's the key is like, what are the right hard things? And so what I realized is if I want to be free and have more capacity to be more creative and create relationships and even do some fun projects even related to my business, including making room for a book, because a book is an absolute distraction from your main business. Okay. Everybody, I do not recommend it unless you're prepared because it truly is this challenging distraction, but you have to know why you want it. You have to know why it has a opportunity for more of a future you, like a couple years down the line versus like the current you. And so the answer is I tell people all the time, like I work really hard to make my life easy. That's kind of how I look at working hard now. So meaning we know that humans are hard. Like I personally like dogs and books better than humans. And I say that with all love. There's easier. Like you always know a book's gonna got your back and a dog will always love you, even on a bad day. And I have kids. So I mean of course, tongue in cheek. I love my people too. But humans are hard. Team is hard, right? And people think, oh, um, especially now, humans are even more hard because what we're exposed to. Like, so we're all battling a lot of friction, pressure, and noise in bigger ways than even I experienced in my come up. Because as I said, I'm a seasoned chicken. I've been around a long time. I'm about 100 years old, honestly. I'm Asian, so this is why I look like this.
Yeah, we don't raisin.
Yeah,
Asians
we
don't
don't raisin.
raisin. Yeah.
Asians don't raisin. So, but in all seriousness, it was like I knew that in order for me to really get to my next level, I had to graduate from what I call donkey mind to unicorn mind. That's why my book is called Unicorn Team, because there's nothing wrong with a donkey. In fact, a donkey is great. A donkey is a beast of burden that carries loads across long distances for us, right? And, but if I was behaving like a donkey, then the gifts and talents and skills and curiosity that I was born at with could not live without me elevating my mindset around like I need and to be a unicorn, it's not about being magical and untouchable, at least in the practical world. It's about am I willing to communicate better with the people I really want to do the work I actually hate, don't want to do, but actually they love to do. Because what we a lot of times forget is the doers of the world. If you identify less as a doer, even though you have a high work ethic, which I call the mobilizer energy in my book. I talk about mobilizers are like, they're very much motivated by doing and accomplishing tasks, right? And I always knew that I am a good mobilizer, but only because I want what I want. But it
Mhm.
wasn't my core talent or energy. And it definitely was more of a learned skill because I'm Asian. Like it's like we get our trophies and cookies from being doers. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, What if I wasn't that? If I'm already the black sheep of my family, right? Why am I instead doing that? Why don't I think like, what would a doer who loves to do, who actually gets a lot out of doing, how could I be the person that motivates them to do more while I focus on thinking and visioning, which the thinking part is the strategy part of me, which is my highest energy. And then vision is like all about the ideas. And so even in my book, where I kind of like lay out the framework of these energies, I started to observe like, oh, when I'm take the next step to explain my strategy, not just say what it is, but actually go, here, this is the strategy. And hey, doer, I want you to be a unicorn with me. You're not a donkey. You're actually a unicorn in your specific doing task, right? You're a doer. I want you to be a unicorn and think like a unicorn. I don't want you to think like a donkey. I want you to think about like, how could I feel so accomplished at the end of the day that the strategy that Jen has laid out or the vision that Jen has laid out, I'm so excited to be a part of that. Right. And I think, Mike, since you have one of your expertise areas is personal brand, and it's more important than ever. I say, like, if you are building your personal brand, you actually have to embody what I'm talking about right now, where it's like that you're willing to communicate even more internally as much as you try to communicate externally, whether through its, social media platforms, email, speaking from stage, doing events. Like, actually, imagine if you took that same level of effort and instead did it to become the leader that your doers want to actually like prop up and elevate and make like that's worth doing. And that's the premise of my book and why I even when I was pitching this book, Mike, I got rejected 70 times for this book. So that didn't help when you're Asian, getting a B is like getting an F, right? Like you can't get
Yes.
anything but an A. Okay. So this level of rejection was like, I can't even describe the amount of tending to my mental health with this book was like wild. And um, I, but I kept saying to the people, the publishers, the reason this book has to come first, because people see me also as a brand expert and more from a strategy overall perspective. And I'm really good at monetizing and bringing products to market. That's my background. And I would tell people like my clients, I'm like, before we talk about your brand, your messaging, your new product that you want to bring to market, I need to talk about who's in your life right now, your actual team and all this. And they would always go, oh no, I don't want that.
Mhm.
That's operations. I'm bad at managing people. I want to talk about how I like re-message myself. And I'd go, yeah, okay. So I can put lipstick on a pig and I can manufacture you being the most epic person that everyone sees, but it won't last. Or you're going to get so burnt out, you're going to quit because it's actually that rally point, meaning rallying these other people around you so that you can go bring your ideas to the world in a sustainable way. That's how Steve Jobs did it. And people will be like, oh, Steve Jobs is a bad manager. He was a bad manager. He said he didn't like people that much. He's an S, he's a strategizer. But what he really did is he was able to paint a picture and hold a standard for the doers in his life, including Steve Wozniak, to come and bring their best to the team because they saw the vision and he was so stubborn about it. And I think that unicorns are stubborn about whatever they're good at, including the doers. And we need to be thinking that way instead of like ease and flow just comes from meditating. It does, but doing is still required, as you said, Mike. Like you said it, doing is still required no matter what. So if you're going to have to do it, I'd say consider what I write in the
Yeah.
framework that I present around
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. I think it's so interesting that you're building like you're talking about team first. Like one of the this surprised me, but over the years of coaching and having different programs on my own side, one of the most insightful questions that I'd ask people to answer before we work together was like, where do you get your love and support and encouragement from?
Mm,
And people are like, no
mm.
one's ever asked me that and then I wouldn't say like, oh, what's going on? What are your goals? I would have that part later, but it was like, tell me about your family
Yes.
or like, how do you see the world? And it was just so interesting. Sometimes you get some crazy answers. Like you're like, we are not a good fit. I'm going to do this to prove to my wife that I can get it done. Like, okay, we are not a good fit. Like, this is the
Right.
wrong execution of that. But I love that you're starting with team first because, and I want to kind of lead into this because we have so many solopreneurs who are probably tuning
Mhm.
into us right now. We get into this line of work. This year, I'm celebrating 10 years on my own, which is
Wow.
kind of wild.
Congratulations. That's
Thank
huge.
you.
Yeah.
And and I'm like, I don't want to work this hard anymore. Like, I need a
Mm.
team now. Like, I really do. I've had great team members, I've had contractors, and it hit me at some point where I was like, man, I'm marketing all these leadership experts, all these people who have built businesses. It's time I really like live this out. Um, any solopreneur who has hired a VA, a contractor, they have stepped into that role where they become the quarterback of all things,
Yes.
right? And that's you're
Yes.
just like, oh crap, when did this happen? Now I'm
Yes.
managing people. Um, how did you handle some of that growth that you had? Like, what was that gradual? Was it all at once? What did that journey look like for you?
Yeah, I love this question. And I also just want to say I love that you ask your clients that first about like who, because people don't realize. I always tell people there's no such thing really as a business problem. There's only personal problems that you're not managing. And then you got to go find the right mentors and frameworks to install for your own goals. Like it's like you can read every book in the world, you can take every course, but if you don't handle some of that stuff, it'll always just be this, you know, this bucket with a leaky bucket. But to the question, first of all, let's define team, right? Because I think even solopreneurs, and I've had this conversation, it's been really juicy with a lot of my friends and colleagues around like, oh, Jen, now I'm also in the season of the opposite of what you just said, Mike, which is like, I want to actually like lean out. I want to lean down. And I'm like,
Mhm.
that's what's so cool is that's my point, is that team is anyone who is supporting the big goal. So when you're solopreneuring, you're most likely definitely like managing your cash flow and going, who do I actually need? So you might get a part-time VA to start. When you want to like rebrand your website or do branding, you'll get a graphic designer, pay them for the project. These are still team members. So team isn't even an ongoing retainer or anything like that. It's really like in the season you're in, if you're in solopreneur season, who are the actors or characters that you need that are skilled to get, let's say, your course launched or your whatever. So these are still part of your unicorn team. And um, when I was starting out, the biggest thing I realized is as an entrepreneur, if I wanted to be successful, I actually had to take some of the structure that I had in the corporate world, but I definitely didn't have the budget. I didn't have anybody paying for my payroll. I didn't have office space. I didn't have a parking spot. I didn't have any of those things and I didn't have a lot of money. So what I needed to do was like, but what made my team in corporate so good at getting products to market? I had to start up thinking, I actually started dissecting that and turned it into a framework, which is in the book. I was like, oh, I need to ask these questions. And of the people that I'm asking to jump on my team, even if it's for a limited engagement or a short term contract, that I was like, I need to scope out what I want. I need to be able to create a communication cadence and process, and then be able to keep and help them understand that they need to be accountable to the agreement we make on the scope, right? And that really helped. That's why when people look at my journey, I've been an entrepreneur since 2006. Um, they're like, Jen, when you do something, it turns to gold or like it goes fast. And I'm like, it looks fast. It looks fast. But behind the scenes is me committing to the things I actually hate doing. That's the truth. Meaning, I don't want to have structure. I don't want to be put in a corner. I just want to be a free bird. Okay. But it's that discipline that I realize that if I just have that discipline, I don't have to have all the disciplines. I don't have to meditate every day. I don't have like, because it's overwhelming too, right? As a solopreneur, like, what should I do mindset wise? I need to meditate. I need to like wake up at 5 a.m. I need to like, all these, and then I need to like build a team. And then right? It's very overwhelming. So for me, it was like, the core of like when you think of the word discipline, which I actually abhor, like the word itself I abhor, okay? But if you look at the core of the word discipline, it's disciple. And I was like, my goodness, if I'm not willing to be a disciple of my own dreams, no one else is going to be. So I was like, what is the one thing that could move the needle for me? And I was like, it is this structure that I was so good at managing when I was in corporate. Let's take that and put it into my business. So that's what happened. It was like, and when I would work with VAs the early days, or my current COO, Sarah, who is also Asian, she's Japanese, and I met her in a nonprofit room that I was donating my time with 10 years ago, and she was a housewife with 4 kids under age 5, and she was like, "Oh my god, like, I've never met an Asian like you who is so clear in what she wants, but you don't wanna do anything." And I said, "Yeah, I'm looking for the people who wanna do it, and then I can just outline it," you know? And it made her go, "I wanna be a part of this." Like, she even told me, she's like, "What do you need?" And I'm like, "I can't afford you. Like, I don't even have any money." This is back then. I was like, "I can't really afford a full-time person." And she was like, "Why don't we start part-time? And it sounds like you wanna do a little bit more editing and video." Because I was like, at the time, I was like, I should get more on social media. And because again, this was a decade ago. And she was like, "I'll just follow you around the park and I'll tape you." Look how old we are. We said taping. Like she's like, "I'll video you and I'll edit it." And I was like, "Do you know how to do that stuff?" She's like, "No, but I can figure it out." And I immediately knew, like, that was unicorn energy, I call it, this magic, right?
Mm.
And it's when you start to be able to speak through your own way of being, like, be yourself fully, because and then explain how you would like it done. And when I say explain, not every tit and tat, because if you're not organized, which I'm not, and you're not a details person in terms of the doing part, I'm a details person on the finished product part. But like the building of the sausage, I'm definitely not as interested in. Um, there, it like attracts people like Sarah to your life. That's my point. And I didn't have an employee at that point. I had Sarah,
Mm.
and over the course of just this past decade, we were just talking yesterday because I was at the Apple store because my computer completely died finally. And that computer has made me $50 million in the last decade. 50, 50. That one computer. And
Amazing.
I'm Filipino, so I'm so superstitious. And I'm like, stay with me, girl. Don't die on me. Right. And Sarah was like, I was like, oh my gosh, Betsy's dead. We gotta bury Betsy, right? On my computer, my laptop. And she's like, it's because it's a new era. It's like this next level, next devil. She did her job
Oh
for
my
the
gosh,
era we were
yes.
in. And now it's like this next era. And even your computer is part of your unicorn team. That's my point. Like, what tools are you using? Like, what tools, and then organize them. And what's cool about my book, again, is like in the book, I literally tell you how to do it. Just like
Mm.
structure it in this way. If you hate structure, you're going to love my book because it's structure that supports people who think like Mike and me. Like we're more inquisitive. I'm curious about the world. I'm fascinated about how things work, but I don't want to like build the thing that it works. I
Yeah,
wanna, like,
yeah.
work with people to build it.
It's so cool that you're talking about Sarah because she starts out in this kind of part-time role, and I think people think when they're, like, solopreneuring, they don't have to worry about culture. They just wanna
Oh,
get the crap done. No, but you do. Like, every good contractor I've had has
yes.
either come through one of my coaching programs or was a friend of a recommendation or somebody I met, like you met Sarah, and we just
Yeah.
hung out and got to know each other, so they just knew my vibe. And then the
Yes.
worst were people I was like, "Oh, they're really good at this, and they're gonna execute on this task," and I'm just like, "I hate this. It's just not a vibe." Um,
Mhm.
and it's like, I love that you mentioned the word disciple. I came from a church background, kinda makes me cringe
Mm.
that word. It's like, "Oh,"
Yeah, so
right?
did
But it's
Sarah. She was like, "Oh my god, I didn't even know about Ice Cube until or Tupac until I was 22," you know?
yes,
'Cause
yeah, that doesn't raise his
yeah.
hand.
So
But it's like, oh, like new wine in an old container, right? Like, you can't really do that. I
yes.
love what you shared about Betsy, your laptop. I love that you named her.
Yeah.
Um, I just got a new car. I haven't had one for a while. I
Oh.
actually had like my ex-wife's car because I don't
Oh.
drive very much, and I finally
See?
got rid of it. So I bought a Tesla. It's like, oh my god, I've listened to all these audiobooks since getting it, and gone back to Barnes and Noble because I have to charge the stupid car.
Yes.
And I'm like, the best ideas and even prepping for this podcast I did at Barnes and Noble because I was like, oh, this is good. It's just changing the energy. So it's like a new era. And what also happens a lot in these new eras, like you just get flooded with ideas, right? Like I'm in that zone right now. Obviously, you are too, because having a book. I don't have kids, but I've heard, and my female friends have said this. Like writing a book is like having a baby. The
Oh,
ladies in my life said it, ladies, not me. But
major. That
yeah,
they're not lying. I just wanna amplify what you said, that since I'm a woman, yes. In fact, I think it's harder labor than having the actual kids. I'm not even joking. I think it's
Mm.
the hardest thing. I think it's harder than entrepreneurship, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's a beast. But I want to talk about those big ideas because that's one thing that you just kick off the book like right out the gate. You talk about navigating big ideas. I'm full of them right now because new season. Probably you are too,
Mhm.
right? And if
Yeah.
you're like juggling all these ideas, what's your advice? How do you guide people through like identify that one thing that aligns? Like
Yeah,
what does that
so
look like?
So in the book, I just talk about a process that I use. Like everything I do or teach, I've eaten my own dog food. That's one of the values in my company. Back to culture. I love that you named that, because even as a solopreneur, you actually do have a vibe and a culture that you want. And you should, even when you're hiring a VA or contractor, say to them, this is kind of how I am, who I am. Like sometimes we feel we haven't been taught that we should tell even a part time contractor how we are, where we get our energy from, like what our cadence of work is, how we kind of like have spurts. Let's say, because I do things in spurts. Like I will just be like batch everything and then I give it to my team and then I'll go quiet for like 2 weeks. And a lot of times we don't do that. So I love that you named that. That is a cultural thing inside of your company, even if you're a company of one. And by the way, if you're a company of one, you're the team. So you're still part of the team. We live in a world where visionaries are put on a pedestal and not supposed to be part of the team. And I'm like, no, you're the nucleus actually of the team. It radiates out of you. And so that's important. So I didn't want to like leave that without saying that, because I love that you surfaced that, Mike. Now, when it comes to like dealing with our infinite ideas, because yes, I mean, my God, right? I'm like, can I just get paid for all the great ideas I get in the shower? Because then I'd be a bajillionaire, right? Like if I could just get paid just for the idea and not do anything else with it. But to be helpful in the book, I definitely I attack that first, if you will, in the book. Like it's like first, let's deal with your ideas. Because if you are what I call a high visionizer energy, so V energy, you'll hear me call it V energy, you're motivated by your ideas. You get energy from your ideas. And so, but usually the people who you really need to work with you are not actually motivated by ideas. They're motivated by doing. And so why I do what we call an idea storm in the book. It's just a quick exercise. And I like to do an idea storm every month so that I'm processing out of me. Cause I think that's the other thing is like we tend to vomit on our team sometimes ideas that aren't ready for game time, right? They're not ready for showtime and they cannot actually let me just tell y'all, they actually do not care if they're mobilize their energies. They actually don't care. And if they're strategize their energies, which I talk about in the book, they're like, are you ready to go or not? Because I don't want to hear about it until you're ready. And then mobilizers actually don't care at all, whether you believe it or not, but they pretend they care because they're caring people. Okay. So we need a place. We need other people around us, like Mike, whoever your colleagues in circle are. I call that a unicorn team too. Like, who are your mentors and colleagues where these ideas can come out? And do you have a process to filter the ideas? And in the book, there's a process called idea storming where you get to like just dump all your ideas out once a month or anytime. I don't care. You could do it daily, you could do it weekly, you could do it once a year. It doesn't really matter. It's about like that it's there first. And then you use the process to filter out like, hey, is this an idea worth implementing? Because all ideas are good, usually, right? Like there isn't a bad idea. Most ideas aren't bad. Depends on the messenger, but most ideas aren't bad. Um, but not all most ideas are not worth implementing. And as a visionizer energy, people with ideas, we have to learn that if we're running a business, you have to actually choose the winning ideas, because otherwise you're going to be in this vicious cycle of like resentment of like, none of my ideas are really coming to life in the way I wanted. And like the team like didn't understand it. And, la, la, la. And I did it because I've been there and still there sometimes. I'm not pretending like I'm perfect, but the process in the book helps you sort that out so that what will emerge is maybe like the one or two best ideas to pursue, right? And then even read your team in or start to interview for, let's say, a contract or even a new coach that can help you like shape it and move it into like real reality, right? But I say do that first before you even hire, before you even initiate the project with your current team, or even before you like decide I'm going to work with a mentor or a coach, because then you're coming with at least some type of shaped, not fully shaped, but a little bit of polish on it that you've personally done before you get other voices inside of it. So that's what is in actually the first couple chapters of the book, because I really feel like that's so important. Got to
Yeah,
exfoliate before you
yeah.
put the skincare on. You know,
I love that.
like
I
you're
love, yeah,
you're
yeah.
Korean, right? You're Korean, so
Oh
you
yeah, I do
understand
have the
all.
skincare. Oh yeah, my
Yo,
friends
the
got me. Yeah,
Koreans, like the
we know what
K,
we're doing with that. Yep.
right? So you got to
Yeah.
exfoliate first before you
I'm
can
gonna
put.
send you a box. You'll love it.
Oh my god,
I've
I'm so
got
excited.
one last question.
Yeah,
I'm not sure exactly how to phrase this, but it's so apropos for where you are because I think when you talk about ideas and then you execute on the right idea, there's always a lag on how long it takes to get done before you move on to the next thing. So even right now, I remember when I wrote my book and it came out, I was like, dude, I moved on from this a year ago.
yeah. That's how
But
I feel right now. Just to be honest, Mike.
yeah, that's just not how the market works, right? Like you water the lawn, you grow it, and you like it takes a while to grow. You can't just like, you know. And then sometimes there's like an echo after it, right? Like people start still buy my book once in a while. I was like, oh gosh, I'm still talking about this. Okay, cool. How have you navigated that over your career? I know you're in it right
Mhm.
now, but I know that that has happened to somebody like you where you had a great idea and you're like, okay, I birthed it, I launched it, I'm on to the next thing. Do you ever feel like you keep getting pulled back into that to serve it? Or is that where the team has stepped in? Like, what does that look like for you?
First of all,
Fascinated by that. No.
yes, I'm totally bored once I've done it. And I think most entrepreneurial thinkers are like that. Like I think that's part of our DNA. Like, okay, I'm bored, moving on. And that's where actually, even in my book, I talk about the difference between ideation and iteration, right? So ideation is where we get excited. Ideation is ideas. Let's get it out. Let's get it to market. And then let's move on. Iteration is the thing that makes you money. So
Mm,
iteration is the thing that is what I call maintenance, sexy money and sexy impact. Okay. And in the book, I talk about this is why the team is so important. Because when I think about Sarah, as I named Sarah, and how she's, every year kind of not just grown as a person and as a leader, but she is now the COO of my company and runs the joint, right? And she doesn't even have a college education. She came from her father was a pastor in a church. She had a lot of stuff to unpack, like all the things that we've talked about. And now it's like her job is to keep, and she loves it. See, the thing is, mobilizers love to make things keep working. They want to polish and make the factory more efficient because now the idea is in the factory. We've built the factory, we've invested in the factory now, right? Your job is if you want that idea to keep growing because you know it's a good idea, you're just bored with it, then you need to find those people who like really enjoy the factory. They want to run the factory. You got to go find your factory supervisors like Sarah. And um that's the key is like going, hey, I'm going to let you know once we get it to market. I don't want to do it, but I also know it's critical for our sustainability, for our cash flow, for our greater impact. And so I need y'all's help to be obsessed with um, upgrading it. Like every software needs an upgrade, every car
mm,
needs maintenance. Your products also need that same stuff. Even your marketing techniques need an upgrade every time something else happens. And I hate that stuff too. I'm like, ugh, I don't want to talk about this stupid new marketing funnel that we got to build. Like, just go build it and let's keep selling stuff. And it's back to culture, what you said, and this enrollment and expectation or standards up front. Like, just to let you know, when we're bringing it to market, and once we successfully prove that it's an idea worth growing, which is basically your minimum viable product idea that people probably have heard, it's your job to keep it going and to be clear about that up front and create incentives. Like I talk about in the book, I have a fail money account, meaning like I want to cultivate innovation. Even I don't have a big team. I have 22 people on my team now. To some people, I'm like, oh, that's huge. But I've been in business since 2006. So it's actually not me going, I want hundreds of people, right? Um, and we have a very specific process. Again, it's all in the book, like literally, where I'm like, BAU or business as usual, we call that business as usual, BAU or iteration is Sarah's job. Sarah's job is that. It's like Tim Cook. I use Apple a lot because we're all familiar with that brand. And people sometimes go, oh, but that's a corporate thing, not an entrepreneurial thing. I'm like, no, it is entrepreneurial because guess what? Steve Jobs was an entrepreneur. Okay. He was a visionary. He saw things. And Tim Cook, who is the current CEO of Apple, he's a Sarah. He was the COO of Apple. And when Steve Jobs died, he knew he wanted to hand the keys over to a person who would make sure the lights would stay on, a factory minded person. Now, so Mike, translating it to your audience, it's the same mindset. It's the same energy. You're just not choosing to build the biggest brand in the world, like an Apple. But even if you have a coaching practice or you're building courses, it's still that mindset of who's going to be my unicorn that keeps it growing. And you now act more as an advisor of that thing going forward. Think of yourself as like head of the board instead of like the doer in the beginning or the main energy.
I love
Hope
it.
that
It's
I
so
hope that
good.
answered the question.
Oh, heck yeah.
Okay.
Amazing. I want to encourage everybody to check out, just grab a copy of Jen's book, or buy it through my links so she'll like me even more. So, um, but yeah, Jen, congrats on the book. It's incredible. I've read through it, and I'm just super excited for you to get this out into the world. I think you come at it from such a unique voice and perspective and
Mm,
experience. So
thank you.
I salute, huge congrats, and thanks for just doing the hard work of making it simple for the rest of us.
Oh,
So,
well, thanks, Mike. It
yeah,
means so much to hear that from you because, you do brand and you understand and you understand all the challenges. And I'm just grateful to be here and to have been able to chat about it. So thanks so much.
yeah, my pleasure.